Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. And in today's video, we are going to be continuing My Hero Academia Heroes of the Morphing Grid. What if Deku was a Power Ranger? Part 18. And with Part 18, we begin the Vigilante arc for What if Deku was a Power Ranger, covering the final portion of Season 6. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to everyone who has been following along as we are continuing a story that I did a little over a year ago, and for some time I wasn't sure if you guys were really into What if Deku was a Power Ranger, but you guys have been showing massive support from the beginning of the continuation of this story, and I've really enjoyed having a chance to go through and make it. So I want to say thank you to all of you who have been enjoying the ride so far. And don't worry, when Season 7 comes out, we will be doing Season 7. So as always, continue to like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that bell for post notifications. Always stay up to date on everything that's on the channel. That's to come out now and in the future. That way we can keep making more awesome content for you in the future that you'll all enjoy. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into today's video. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. For the citizens of Japan, as the days went by, they came to learn that the peace and security that they enjoyed for so many years was nothing more but a glass house built on sand next to a beach where a storm loomed on the horizon. And all it took was one change in direction, and the winds of chaos suddenly loomed on their doorstep. The streets had become lawless, civilians fending for themselves against criminals and other rogues, many heroes being driven into retirement. Many of the younger heroes, ones of whom were being shielded, had to step up. Even UA had to temporarily stop their classes in order to open up a shelter to those in need. Even while she was recovering, Midnight would be in charge of watching over the students, while Mr. Aizawa recovered and other pros were fast at work. For Midnight, she was relieved, almost as if she had avoided the cruel fate of death, although she knew what awaited would not be for the faint of heart. The hero life is something that's often glamorized, but it's never taken into its full totality for what it can truly be and for the harms that truly come from it. When peace lasts for as long as it does, so often heroes enjoy the spotlight. They enjoy the credit that they're given, the praises that are sung. There are many heroes who have often ridden on the coattails of such greatness. But now, when true adversity had hit their doorstep, many of Japan's finest found it harder and harder to keep fighting. The civilians who once thought that they could leave everything to the heroes had now become paranoid, taking up weapons and arms for themselves to deal with the thugs and criminals that came their way, no longer wanting to have anything to do with the hero society that they believed failed them. Among all the chaos and destruction, there loomed one hero shrouded in smoke. He was a blur, often hard to see. He moved across Japan with a quickness, taking down groups upon groups of villains that were going on a rampage, trying to quell all of the prison breaks that had occurred. It was none other than Deku. But what were the other Rangers doing? Well, All for One was sure to keep them busy. You see, Using the broken morpher they had gotten from the alternate universe version of Rita, they were able to tap into many secrets, but yet they had barely scratched the surface, creating more stronger high-end Nomu monster hybrids with capabilities far exceeding that of any quirk. The Rangers found themselves on the front lines, battling against monsters that could often grow upon their defeat. The Zords were fast at work. Izuku knew that being close to them was making himself a prime target for All For One. So rather than join the Rangers, he instead chose to strike out on his own, with the likes of Endeavor, Hawks, Best Genus, and All Might. While the Rangers focused on the monster side of things, they would focus primarily on the villains. That wasn't to say that Izuku was helpless. Even without his Ranger powers, he was still the user of One For All. And on top of that, he was adept at using some Ranger weapons he had took with him. It wasn't his Dragon Dagger or any special weapon of that nature, just the standard sword and gun that every Ranger had. It was just something that came with the suit naturally. It was something you could also use without having to morph, Izuku carrying the respective gun and sword on his holster, although never using it in a vengeful way or to take a life. But he was just using the skills that he had been so accustomed to for so long. On one particular day, Izuku found himself coming face to face with none other than Muscular, the muscle-bound, psychotic villain, now looking to get his rematch with Deku. He begged for Deku to transform, to do what he did last time. He wanted them to go all out. Deku, however, didn't want to. He couldn't anyway, he didn't have the morpher. But he didn't think he was going to need it. For once, Deku had to stop and think. It wasn't enough just to fight these villains. He had to understand them, to try to see reason. However, they did not want any of that. In particular, Muscular, his only desire was to go all out, and to have no regrets about the life he lived, even at the cost of others. As such, Izuku had no choice but to engage with the villain, and in doing so, defeating him, using 45% of One For All, using the Manchester Smash. Thankfully, a couple of young heroes had engaged with him earlier, among them being the hero known as Grand. It was thanks to his ability with his quirk that allowed the opening for Izuku to take him down. Once Muscular was turned into the police, Izuku would meet with All Might to get some lunch and to recover, as well as to plan out their move against All For One and his allies. The pros were not having much luck either. Endeavor's public image was all but shattered, along with that of pros in general. They weren't really welcomed anywhere, but they kept doing what they had to do. For now, they kept their distance from Izuku, not wanting to cause him any more trouble from guilt by association. But the public were getting antsy. On top of that, rumors were spreading around about what One For All was, and that some reason All For One was after it. If the links were made back to Izuku, he would become a pariah. Safe to say, he wouldn't be welcomed anywhere, and people, out of fear, might turn against him. The best thing they could do was keep Izuku shrouded for as long as they could, hoping that his presence alone would draw out the League or All For One, allowing for them to finish this fight. For the heroes, it was not in the best of situations, mainly because of the fact that they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. They couldn't find All For One, but All For One could tag them. They knew they had to take down All For One, and All For One needed Izuku. But yet he didn't seem too overly pursuing in that endeavor, so to speak. For now, the only thing they could do was wait and bide their time. Amongst all the chaos, though, Izuku tried his best to maintain himself. Even during one night, when an anthropomorphic fox woman by the name of Ipan found herself at the mercy of those who were seeking justice and believing she could have been a villain, Izuku would save the fox girl, trying to bear a happy face. She felt secure with Izuku, as All Might would come in and help take her to the nearest shelter. Upon doing so, Izuku was prepared to leave. However, when he tried to use his communicator, it would be shot through and broken. It was a bullet, a curving bullet, made out of hair of indigo and pink. It was at that moment that Izuku realized something. A conversation he had had with Hawks not too long ago, warning him about someone in particular that he should avoid at all costs. The one known as Lady Nagant. She was a sniper, or rather, her quirk was that of a sniper. She could break off her hair that would turn into a hard putty, stronger than steel. She could shape it any way she wanted to, and her right arm had the ability to transform into that of a sniper rifle, making her a human rifle of sorts, with great skills in marksmanship, some that put even the great hero Snipe to shame. However, Izuku would be in for a major surprise, as Lady Nagant would begin her hunt for the young hero. Izuku thought he was going to be a goner for a second, until a flash would show up between him and the bullet, cutting it away. "Sir, it's not safe for you to be here." "It's alright, kid. Don't worry about it. I was sent here by an old friend to help you out a little." "An old friend? Wait, do you mean..." "I know your friend, All Might." Nagant would hide in the shadows. She thought the boy would be alone. She had specifically set up decoys and delays to stop the other heroes from getting to the boy, knowing that he'd be in trouble once his communicator went offline. But yet, who was this new guy? He seemed ordinary enough, dressed as a civilian. A man that seemed to be in his late 30s, early 40s, brandishing a katana blade. He had short-cut black hair with green frosted tips, as he looked towards where Nagant had shot at. "She's definitely not going to be easy to take down, but you and I should be able to manage. You cover my flank, okay?" Before Izuku had a chance to protest, the young man would move, trying to avoid Lady Nagant's strikes as he had to plan his next assault. Meanwhile, the older swordsman would continue running, as he avoided and cut down each shot that came his way. Nagant would use airwalk, an added quirk to her abilities. The swordsman moved at blinding speeds as he raced towards Nagant, Nagant having to use smoke grenades and diversions to keep herself hidden. Using one of the bullets that had a microphone to it and a communicator, she would speak to him. "Who are you? You seem familiar, like I've seen your moves before. Are you a former hero?" "You could say that, although I consider myself retired now. It's quite amusing, actually. Here I was, living a simple life. I actually had 2 businesses, you know, before you villains decided to ruin it. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience." "Yeah, what are you gonna say to my wife? She loved that juice bar, and you guys just blew it up, along with my dojo. You're lucky I got my things out of there before it happened, otherwise I'd be pretty upset." "Dojo? Juice bar? Wait, you can't be. Are you?" "The Dragon Shogun Burai, at your service." Dragon Shogun Barai. Quirk, peak human. Barai was born with a special quirk. It was, by all intents and purposes, a simple enhanced human quirk. Or, for those of you who need a reference, it's imagining being born like Captain America, but without the super soldier serum. He was born in peak human condition. From a baby, infant onwards, it means that he has a special or unique frame about himself. Unlike other humans, Barai can never get sick. He can never suffer from disease or any type of ailment that any other person might. He'll never catch anything like cancer or any other disease. He's impervious to all of them, and I mean all of them. Unless someone flat out kills him, the only thing he'll be dying of is ripe old age. But honestly, being peak human, it allows him the ability to potentially live a lot longer than the average human. Maybe around 150, close to 200 years, give or take. And he's only in his mid-30s to late 40s, which means technically speaking, despite being retired, he's still in his prime, all things considered. But I saw your file, Lady Nagant would say. Your civilian name. It's J. There's no need to worry about that, Lady Nagant. I'm familiar with who you are as well. So tell me, why is someone like you, with all of your skills and talents, hunting this poor boy? Because it's my mission. And besides, he suffers from the same delusions that you do. Delusions, you say? I'm not the one killing and causing chaos. You are a part of the system. You know better than anyone what I mean. I see. So you're one of those people that hates hero society. Let me ask, what happened to you? Like you would actually care. Barai would avoid another shot with his blade as he backed away to hide himself. Come on, you can tell me. I know he's listening also. We'd love to understand you better. Even if you can understand me, it doesn't change anything. That boy is my target, and you, I cannot let you live. You may be the peak human, but even still, you're only human. Barai would avoid another shot, only to be intercepted at the last moment by another one. A misdirection, he thought. He quickly used his katana in his sheath to block the two strikes, only for a third strike to pin him in the shoulder. Damn it! I figured as much. You may be the peak human, in a physical condition that none of us could ever reach, but in the end of the day, even you have your limits. Hey, I'm just a little rusty. I haven't been a hero in almost 5 years. I thought you retired because you could make sense of the world. But no, you're still as delusional as always, Barai. You keep calling me delusional, and yet it feels like you're the one that's running away. So tell me, what happened to you? I used to work for the Safety Heroes Commission. When I first started, I believed that what I was doing was for the greater good. But tell me, do you know how many awful things heroes in this world truly do? The crimes they commit? But you'll never hear about them. No, the image that you heroes strive for, it's nothing but an illusion, built on a falsehood, on the ideal that a hero could never fall from grace. And who's the one that has to clean up those who fall from grace? It's people like me, like that hero Hawks. They're vilified. They're hated for what they do. And yet, if it wasn't for us, this country wouldn't have enjoyed peace for as long as it did. I see. So you had to hide the dark side of the hero life from the public. It's understandable. But still, Do you really think that working with All for One is the best of ideas? What's the alternative? All for One gets defeated, the status quo gets restored. Nothing changes in this world. I may not be able to make sense of it all, but I've seen enough of this world to know that it must perish. I see. So you're trading in one evil for another. You know, there's an old saying that an eye for an eye ends up with everyone being blind. If you cannot wake up to the falsitudes of this world, then you truly are blind. Both Deku and Barai would continue their fight against Lady Nagant, as Deku would try to use more of the powers given to him within One for All, among them being the quirk of the third user, known as Fajin, the storage and buildup of kinetic energy that could be unleashed in bursts that could increase one's overall power and reflexes. He attempted to use Fajin along with Smokescreen as well as Black Whip to create a diversion to try to distract Lady Nagant. However, in the process of doing so, he came to see that his opponent was a lot more sharper than he gave her credit for. And also, as if things couldn't get more weirder, he would learn that Chisaki, aka Overhaul, was here as well, but for what reason he didn't know. Nagant, however, wanted to try to break Izuku's will. On top of that, putting him in a no-win situation, both he and Barai. She would attempt a full-on shot towards Chisaki. She knew that one of them would have to go and try to save him, the closest being Izuku. And with that, it would leave one of them wide open to be taken down. However, what she didn't intend on was Izuku's usage of Fajin, along with Black Whip. In mid-air, being able to change its direction at the last moment, he was able to duck down and save Chisaki from the assault, leaving Nagant wide open for a strike from Barai. As Barai jumped into the air, he sliced at the sniper rifle extending from her right arm from the elbow. He was able to slice at the burrow of the gun, and in doing so, forcing Nagant to step back, leaving her wide open once again, as Izuku came charging from her blind spot with a Manchester smash, obliterating her arm and leaving her useless, as she went falling to the ground. For Nagant, she thought it was over. She thought that this was going to be the end. However, Izuku would reach out his hand towards her, trying to hold her up and not wanting her to fall. Endeavor, Hawks, Best Genius, and All Might would now arrive, with Endeavor going to pick up Chisaki, while Hawks would help in saving Lady Nagant. It was at that moment that she had clarity, when she would come to her senses for the actions she had committed. However, despite all of this, All for One had contingency plans in case she got a conscience all of a sudden, immediately being triggered to self-destruct, leaving her body in a crumbling state. As she fell to the ground, she would be saved as Barai would hold her, lying her on the ground and looking worse for wear. Hawks would call for a medical team immediately. Barai would take his hand and place it on her chest, feeling where her heart was beating. It was starting to get slow, but Barai took a deep breath before pointing two fingers towards where her heart was, and at the right moment, he would poke it. This was a form of healing that he had learned, unblocking cheese and things of that nature, often seen as a cliche until now. Nagant's heartbeat, that was now irregular, would start to beat normally, although it was still low. He had bought her some time, but she was still going to need first aid. As Hawks would get her to safety, Chisaki would be brought down. No, no, no. Where is he? Where's the old man? I helped you find the boy. You told me you were gonna help me find Pops. Please, I have to find him. Chisaki, Izuku would say as he looked towards him. If you're trying to find him, I can shut up. Don't talk to me. You're nothing but a diseased monster. You're nothing but a... Before he had a chance to finish, Barai would grab him by the face and slam him to the ground. Izuku wasn't sure of what was going to happen next, but All Might would stop him. You know, I read your file, Chisaki. You are truly a piece of work. Don't lecture me. You... What? Hero? I'm retired, but yeah, that's what I am. You're a plague. You're what's wrong with this world. Look at everything. Look at what you've done. This country's going to hell, and it's all your fault. Is that so? Coming from the would-be criminal that's a pale imitation of his master. Shut the hell up! I'm not done talking. Unless you want to have a muzzle, then I suggest you shut your mouth. I've been quiet for a while now. I don't really like to get involved. I've been enjoying a quiet life with my wife and with my daughter. You know, she's around the same age as that girl you tortured. When I read the reports about what you did, there was a part of me that wanted to hurt you. I wanted to do to you everything you did to that girl. The only downside is that unlike you, I can't revive anyone, meaning I only get the satisfaction of killing you once. But you know something? When I heard what happened to you, the way you lost your arms, I couldn't help but laugh. It was so ironic. The guy that hated quirks ended up losing his own. You know, Chisaki, I hate people like you. Truly, you disgust me in the worst way possible. You talk about hero society, you go on and on about heroes, you say this and you say that, but tell me, what are you? A hero's not perfect, but what's a villain? Tell me, is there such a thing as a perfect villain? What's redeeming about you? You were a part of a criminal organization that was a plague on society. Even if quirks didn't exist, it wouldn't stop you from taking innocent lives. You Yakuza are nothing but thugs. You pretend to live by a code. You pretend that you're different from your average gangster, but really you're not. You're nothing but the lowest of the low, the scum of society, and the world would be better off without you. Tell me, what did that girl do wrong? What did she do to deserve to be tortured by you? You tried to take everything away from her. Reduce her to nothing but a lab experiment. You treated her like she wasn't even human anymore. But you want to know something about that little girl? She's resilient. She's a fighter. She didn't let the evil that you subjugated her to affect her. And you know something? She's gonna grow up one day, and I promise you, she's gonna live in a world with heroes that she can look up to. You don't get to take that away from her, and you don't get to bark and make demands. Izuku would now walk up to Chisaki. I'll fulfill Lady Nagant's promise on the one condition. You apologize to Eri for what you've done. Apologize? But she's never gonna forgive you? If you're expecting forgiveness, then you can forget it. I'm not making you apologize for that, for your own consciousness. It's because for her, she deserves it. She did nothing wrong to deserve the torture and the pain that you put her through. So yeah, I want you to apologize. And whether or not she forgives you, that's for her to decide. And after that, you will never bother her again. Do you understand me? You do that, and I'll let you see your boss. With that, Chisaki would be taken away. That left only Barai, All Might, and Deku. All Might, you sent him? Actually, he was passing through. He was taking his family to the shelter, and when the situation went down, I made a call. I know that you've been trying to work on your own, but it's fine. He was actually a lot of help. Dragon Shogun, thank you. It's no problem. No need to thank me. Oh yeah, you dropped this. He held up a cracked phone to Izuku. As he took it, on the screen there were a picture of Izuku's friends, among them being Uraraka. The girl in pink. She's pretty cute. You got the hots for her? Oh, no, it's, nothing like that. Oh, she just seems very prominent in your photo. It's okay, I understand. I have a thing for girls in pink, too. He would take out his wallet showing a picture of himself, his wife, and his daughter. This is me, this is my wife, Kimberly, and this is my daughter, Teresa. Oh, they're lovely. Say, Jason, you think you want to stay out and help us for a bit more? I'd like to, All Might. Truly I would, but, I gotta get back to my girls. Besides, I figure my best bet would be to hold down the fort at the UA hideout, don't you agree? You're right. In a situation like this, you definitely would be a big asset to guard the civilians there. Please give my regards to the others. I'll try to get in contact with them eventually. Yeah, I figure. Hey, kid. Izuku would turn to Barai as he sheathed his sword, preparing to leave. We got some good friends watching your back. Remember to take care of them. Right, I will. And with that, Barai would speed off, making his way to the UA base. I can't believe I got to meet Barai. I've heard so many amazing things about him. Indeed. If he hadn't retired, there's a good chance he might be the #1 hero right now. Really? Izuku would say. Even under the tiredness, his fandom was showing. I used to work with him from time to time back in the day. Even if he was only half of what I was in my prime, he was still a hero to be admired. Oh yeah. His name. I think I've heard it before though. It's Jason. Jason David Frank. Although he likes to go by JDF from time to time. And he had the nickname Tommy for a while. I see. What an amazing guy. You think I'll see him again? Good chance you might. Oh, by the way, here's your lunch. Thank you, All Might. I'll see you later. And with that, Izuku would disappear. As the hunt continued, more and more, there were no leads that were turning up. Even with what they had been given from Lady Nagant of a mountainous hideout, it was nothing but a trap set by All For One, who openly declared war on Izuku, telling him that it was his turn to run. Izuku was starting to be worn down. His clothes were tattered. he looked like more of a monster than a human at this point. And to make matters worse, he was running on fumes. As he came up against the villain known as Dictator, who had the ability to control others against his will, the Dictator would laugh maniacally. "You're just like the boss described, low and running on empty. You won't be much of a challenge at all. I'll get that reward." The civilians that were closing in on Izuku couldn't do anything as they moved against their will. Izuku knew that the only way to beat Dictator was to either knock out the civilians or knock out the controller himself. But Izuku was almost too tired to stand. He just needed a moment, a chance to come up with a plan. Just a few seconds to close his eyes. Just a few seconds to think. When suddenly an explosion would be heard. It would crack the head of Dictator, knocking him out cold. As the civilians all ran to safety, not sure if they should thank Izuku or be terrified of Izuku, Izuku would slowly stand to his feet as he saw a familiar group he hadn't seen in a while. His friends? Everyone was there. Among them all standing, Uraraka, as she walked forward. "Guys, what are you?" "Izuku, we've come to take you home." This concludes My Hero Academia Heroes of the Morphing Grid. What If Deku Was a Power Ranger? Part 18 of the Vigilante arc. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we continue Naruto DxD Heroes Return. What If Naruto Was in High School DxD? Season 4, Part 4. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.